Hi, and in this video, you're going to learn 4 ways to tell if he's falling in love with you or he's love bombing you. Hi, it's Matt Shaffer, your empowerment, connection, and relationship coach. I'm a former attorney who's committed his life to supporting you and creating the sort of fun, fulfilling, dynamic connections and relationships with men that you are so worthy of. And this is such an important topic that we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be breaking down with you 4 key ways to determine if a man is courting you and he's got a healthy romantic interest in you, or he's love bombing you because he wants to control you and manipulate you. And again, this is something that my clients and students are always asking me about, so I'm excited to dive into this topic. But before we do, take a second, hit that little subscribe button, and don't forget to click that link in the comments and caption, because I have created some great training that's going to make a huge difference in your connections and relationships with men. So let's start off by defining the 2 different things we're talking about in this video. The first is the early stages of romantic love, the honeymoon phase. This is the intoxicating period of a new relationship where you and your partner are falling for each other. Neither of you can do wrong in the eyes of each other, and it's truly a beautiful season in the process of becoming emotionally invested with your partner. It's beautiful, right? But what I hear so often from my clients and students is that, how do I know that this person is actually falling for me? And how do I know that they're not just love bombing me, right? And if you've never understood or heard what love bombing is a tool that's used by narcissists and emotionally wounded and toxic masculine men, where basically they shower you with an overwhelming amount of love, attention, and affection so that they can gain control over you and manipulate you. And love bombing is commonly used by narcissists in the idealization phase of the narcissistic abuse cycle. And this is where they present themselves as your Prince Charming so that they can sweep you off your feet and get you under their control so that then, they can take advantage of you in whatever way they see fit. But it's important to recognize that not just narcissists use love bombing. Love bombing can be used by any variety of insecure or toxic masculine man to try to reel you in and get control over you. So what I see most often in my clients and students is that women either think a man is courting them when he's actually love bombing them, or they think that every man who likes them is love bombing them, and therefore they don't let any man in. So to clear all this up, I'm going to share with you the 4 common ways to distinguish authentic early stage romantic love from love bombing, so that you can make sure moving forward that you're letting the right men in and keeping the wrong men out. Sound good? Let's do it. Plus, be sure to watch till the end of this video, as I'm going to be sharing an important bonus point that's going to help you identify a love bomber every time. And the first big way to tell if a man is falling in love with you or he's love bombing you is in the dynamic of freedom versus control. Now, this speaks to the motivation that a lover or a love bomber has in wanting to get to know you. Because on the one hand, a lover is inspired by you, he's activated by you, and he wants to experience freedom with you. He wants to explore who you are and get to know the truth, the foundation of your identity. And he wants to go out and explore the world with you as he gets to know you. He's genuinely interested in who you are and what you're about for no other reason other than you've captured his interest, and he wants to figure out the best ways to make you happy, because guess what? He's invested in your feelings. So for example, a man who's building healthy love for you is going to ask you a lot of questions. Questions about your childhood, maybe even questions about past relationships, about who you are, your hopes, your fears, your dreams, because he really just wants to know these things about you so that he can avoid triggering them for you, especially if it's past trauma, or so that he can make sure that the way he's showing up in the relationship is tailored to exactly what your needs are. And on the other hand, a love bomber is motivated to get to know you so that he can take everything that he's learning about you to reel you in and control you. So a lot of times he's going to ask you a lot of those same deep questions, right, that a healthy lover is going to ask you. He's going to ask you about your hopes, your dreams, your fears, your past relationships, but he's doing it with a very specific agenda. 1, so that he can present to himself as your idealized dream partner, right, your Prince Charming, and 2, so that he can use whatever he's learning about you when he decides to flip the switch on you to blackmail you, to emotionally blackmail you, to control you, and just so that when he decides to start criticizing you, he can do it in the most effective way possible to control you. So if after sharing deeply with your partner, you start to recognize that he's using that stuff against you, for example, he says, oh, you're acting just like your mother right now, after you had complained about that relationship in your own life. Or he says, why would you wear that skirt? Didn't you tell me you were self-conscious about your hips? And he's using these things as weapons to control you. Chances are you're dealing with a love bomber. And also just anytime, if he wants to hang out with you all the time, but he's very controlling and he needs to set all the terms of what that looks like, again, not a good sign. And the second way to tell healthy early stage love from love bombing is through the pace of how it grows. And it's either going to be a fast but controlled build or a runaway train. So let's talk about the speed at which healthy versus unhealthy love grows. Now, in a healthy, loving, early stage relationship, things might move pretty fast, right? Things might physically escalate. You may start sleeping with that person, within a month or so of getting to know them. You may start dropping the L word, right? Saying you love each other within a couple months. I mean, things might move fast, but one thing you'll always notice is that your partner, the guy that you're with, he's going to be conscious of and asking you about and connected to the pace that you're comfortable with. He's going to be aware of it. He's going to be considerate of it. And if you share your boundaries with him, if you share, hey, I'd like things to slow down a little bit, anything like that, he's going to honor that because you know why? He's invested in your feelings. He genuinely cares, right, about your needs and about your comfort. And he's going to be willing to adjust any way that you need in order for you to feel good about the relationship. He doesn't want to mess it up. And in contrast, the pacing and speed of how a love bomber will be pushing a relationship along is going to be like you're on a train where the brakes have gone out and the whole thing could just fly off the rails at any minute. When a narcissist is courting you or a guy is love bombing you because he's trying to control you, your needs, your desires are all going to be secondary to what this man is trying to push you into. So he's going to be talking about marrying you and taking you to Paris and wanting to do all these huge things with you right off the bat. He's going to be dictating the terms of when and how he wants to hang out with you. And it's going to feel like you're on this, treadmill where you can never quite catch your breath, right? Because you're sort of just being dragged along on this huge adventure. And it might be really exciting and it might be overwhelming, but at the end of the day, you're going to recognize that whatever your boundaries were, whatever your preferences were, they weren't even considered. He didn't even ask you about them because you know what? He's just throwing everything at you in the hopes that he can sort of overwhelm your defenses and take control of you. So be conscious of the pacing, ladies. If a man is just coming so hard at you and he's trying to push you far faster than you're comfortable with, chances are you're dealing with a love bomber. And the third way to tell early stage healthy love from love bombing is in the sort of compliments that you are receiving from your man. And this is going to be a difference between realistic compliments and idealized flattery. Now, compliments are one of the most important ways to tell if man is love bombing you, right? I like to think of them like the canary in the coal mine, right? They're a very small sign with a very huge implication. Now, in healthy early stage love, a man's compliments will be big, but they're always going to be tied and grounded in who you are and in what he's experienced of you so far. So for example, he might say, wow, you have such beautiful green eyes, or you're hilarious. Have you ever thought about doing stand-up? Or we have so much fun together. Can you believe how fun it is spending time with you? Now let's contrast this with being love bombed, because when a man is operating from that space, the compliments are going to feel too good to be true, meaning he's going to be giving you the sort of deep, profound compliments that you would only experience from a guy after he's really gotten to know you at a deep level. So within the first couple dates, he's going to be saying things to you like, I think you're my soulmate. What should our kids' names be? You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in the world. Let's go to Paris next week. All that sort of stuff. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. If a guy is coming straight out of the gate and he's saying these things to you within the first couple weeks of getting to know you, or even when he's chatting with you in an online dating app or something like that, that's not a good sign. That's a sign that he's probably a love bomber, right? But I want you to recognize too, that once a healthy romantic interest, once a guy who's really does truly love you has taken the time to fall in love with you, those sort of compliments are okay, right? But they need to be tied to the actual growth and evolution of the feelings that the two of you have for each other. I hope that makes sense. And the fourth way to tell if a man is falling in love with you or he's love bombing you is to look at the emotional dynamics of the relationship. And this is going to be a difference between gradual emotional shifts and abrupt transitions. Now, in a healthy relationship, after you fall in love and you enter into this beautiful honeymoon phase, right? Eventually, unfortunately, the honeymoon phase does end, right? It cannot last forever. And so sometime between 6 months to 2 years into a relationship, the honeymoon phase will end. And if you've really been doing the groundwork of laying a solid foundation with your partner, the emotional dynamics are going to shift from that sort of blissful state, right, of the honeymoon phase into a more secure, comfortable, stable relationship. And it's going to happen over time, right? And eventually you're just going to settle into this longer term relationship that's based more around safety and comfort and support and security and stability than the emotional stratospheric high of being in that honeymoon phase. However, when you're being love bombed, often the emotional ups and downs will happen very quickly, very abruptly. Your partner will be hot and then cold, hot and then cold. And particularly if you're being love bombed by a narcissist, once that idealization phase ends and he no longer feels like he needs to present himself as your Prince Charming to you anymore, he's going to switch gears very harshly and abruptly, and Prince Charming is going to go away and he's going to shift into the narcissistic abuse cycle. And it's going to be very confusing to you because he's going to seem like a completely different person. That sweet, loving man who was so infinitely patient and said all those beautiful compliments to you no longer exists, right? So it's going to be a very abrupt shift, and that's how you know you were being love bombed. And an important point I have to make here, ladies, is that unfortunately, when this happens, when the love bombing sort of ends and a man shifts into a verbally or emotionally or even physically abusive manner with his partner, with his victim, a lot of women will be so confused and so sort of like desperate to try to find that old partner, right? That Prince Charming person, that they'll stay in an abusive relationship for months or even years, just waiting for that old person to sort of like reappear in their partner. And I just have to tell you, ladies, don't do that. He wasn't real and he's never coming back. So it's important that if a man shifts very suddenly and abruptly like that, that you recognize this for what it is and that you walk away because you are worth so much more than that. And another important point about love bombing that I have to make is that this doesn't just happen at the beginning of a toxic relationship. Oftentimes, love bombing will be used not just by narcissists, but by any sort of toxic masculine or manipulative guy whenever he feels like he's losing control over you, or whenever he feels like you're pulling away, he'll oftentimes use love bombing to try to reel you back in and pull you back into his orbit. So just be conscious of that, ladies, is that if you decide that a relationship is toxic and you go to leave and all of a sudden he sort of morphs back into Prince Charming for a minute, that is probably not real, and you want to be very cautious about allowing that man back into your life. And this is probably the most important point that I'm going to make. And while I know love bombing is scary, it is so important that we don't allow the fear of it happening to shut us off from the possibility of meaningful, loving connection with men, okay? Because I promise you, there are healthy, evolved men out there, and it's up to us to sort of like learn everything we can about love bombing and what true, actual, authentic love feels like, and then trust our discernment, right? Trust our own abilities to be able to filter out the men that are not good for us and allow in those that are, okay? Because here's the thing, if you just put your walls up and say, okay, well, I'm so scared of love bombing that I'm just gonna shut all men out, or I'm gonna be really paranoid about it, then here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna either attract toxic masculine men into your space because that's where you're focusing your energy, or you're going to isolate yourself to such a degree that you're not going to allow in any sort of love and connection at all. And that's not what we want, right? There are great men out there, I promise. And if you do this work and if you trust in your own discernment, you're going to find amazing ones. So to review, the first way to tell true love from love bombing is his motivation, the way he's pursuing you. Is it coming from a space of wanting to create freedom with you, or is he looking to control you? Freedom versus control is the first fundamental difference between a man falling in love with you and a man love bombing you. And the second way to tell is by looking at the pace of how the relationship is developing. Is it a fast but controlled build that's connected to your needs and your boundaries and your feelings? Or is it like a runaway train where he's just trying to push you all the way into some huge, deep connection without any real consideration of your boundaries or your needs? And the third way to tell the difference between love and love bombing is in the compliments that you are receiving from this guy. Are they realistic? Are they, rational and grounded in the stage of relationship that you're in? Or is he telling you that he's your soulmate, that y'all are gonna have 15 kids and live on a ranch in Montana, and you were the most beautiful thing he's ever seen, and he's doing this on like your first date or your second date, right? If the compliments feel too good to be true, they probably are. And the fourth way to tell the difference is the emotional dynamics of the relationship. Is there a gradual shift from the bliss of the honeymoon phase into the safety and the security of a stable partnership, right? Out of that honeymoon phase? Or is there an abrupt, like the rug has just been pulled out from under you, an abrupt shift from the love bombing phase, the idealization phase, into the narcissistic abuse phase, or into the truth of whatever version of toxic masculine this guy might actually be? So I hope you enjoyed these 4 tips, ladies. If you did, take a second. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you thought about this video. Let me know about any tips that any signs that I may have missed. I would love for you to share what your biggest signs have been in the comments below. And be sure to click that link in the comments and caption, because I have created some amazing training that's gonna make a huge difference in your connections and relationships with men. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.